but I offer you the invitation. I offer you my expression of the violet flame energy to do with whatever you please. You can bask in it. You can be bathed in it. You can be cleansed by it. And you can co-create with it. It is meant to be for you.
Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I have a very special episode, the one and only Daniel Scranton, the amazing channeler. You, of course, know Daniel because on Sundays and several other episodes, I've read the Arcturian Council channelings. We've got a chance to read some of his creator channelings, Thymus channelings. These channelings have really touched my heart, and it's been a real honor for me to read them. And I had the wonderful opportunity to actually meet Daniel the other day. He was in town. Can you imagine? He lives in Australia, and we had the most amazing meal, and he is so much cooler in person. So it's wonderful to have him on. And Daniel has some cool new courses come up, and we're going to talk about that and do some channeling today. So welcome to the Reality Revolution again, Daniel.
Yeah, it's good to be back, and it's nice to have made that face-to-face connection now. So we know each other, and we're friends, and we can be
For sure.
comfortable with each other in these kinds of chats, you know?
For sure. And Daniel ended up taking me to a restaurant near where I live that's like now one of my new favorites, totally different, great food, and I enjoyed that as well. And we had so much in common, and it was just so wonderful to talk to you. And one of the things we talked about was just the science and art of channeling, and I really want to get into that further with you. I really feel like over the last, especially 10 years, but 5 years even, there has been a revolution in channeling. I think that everybody's saying they feel the shift into the new earth. And I believe that, people are becoming more telepathic, more empathic, tuning into newer abilities every day. It's very gradual. But I have found that as a result of this, more and more people are beginning to channel. And it's also related to my channel. I'm getting contacted by more people and seeing more people that are channeling. And I remember back in the day, you and I talked about it. It was just like I'd heard of Abraham or maybe Seth and had read Seth, but really there, hadn't been a lot of channeling. And it's sort of a channeling revolution that we're going through. And it could be a major part of what we're going through on the planet. So, talk to me about channeling and how we're going into this new age of channeling a little bit.
I like what Bashar says about it when Bashar says, channeling is something that happens all the time that goes unnoticed or that people don't even identify as channeling because it's just, oh, I was lost in the moment. You could be on a skateboard and that could be happening, or you could be playing a musical instrument or dancing or writing. Most people have written something and at times felt like, wow, it's really flowing. And other times it's like, I can't even imagine putting something down on paper. And it's the same thing with dancing. Like it's a great way of sort of exemplifying channeling because sometimes you'll be sitting and there'll be music playing and you don't even realize that like you're going like this and
Hmm.
because there's music playing you're doing it and then suddenly you realize like, oh, I'm dancing. And as soon as you notice it, then you start trying to control it and it becomes a bit more forced, or you're not in the flow anymore because now you're aware of the performative aspect of it. And there's a performative aspect to channeling. It can be very, entertaining for people in an audience when someone's channeling. And of course, I'm sure we've talked about all of my movements and stuff. And
Hmm.
I realized that they can be somewhat dance like when I was channeling back in the day down in San Diego County a lot for people. I remember this one particular workshop I did sitting on my friend's couch and just for 2 hours I was the movements were much more of like a belly dancer kind of like dancing movements than they are now. Now it's very like okay, this arm's up, this other one's doing this. But
Hmm.
it it's something, channeling is something where you get lost in terms of like the kind of micromanaging control over your body, thoughts, and words that you're speaking, and you just allow something. You're more in that state of like, I just am so in this, like a Jackson Pollock kind of like, he was just, letting it flow, and not, it
Hmm.
wasn't like he was drawing, he was painting Whistler's mother or Mona Lisa, who was just like painting, and just blah, whatever came out.
Right.
And people who look at those paintings can feel that. They feel the flow state that he was in, which is why those paintings have value. And maybe if I said, well, I can do that, give me some paint, I'll just do this, and maybe then a person would look at that and go, that's nothing, because they can feel the difference within them. So that's really one of the key components to channeling too, is like there's an energy in it and it's infused into it, and the channeler has to get themselves in that state where then everything they say and do is infused with that energy. And so then people experiencing it can go, oh yeah, I recognize that as being good, or I recognize that as being real, authentic channeling, as opposed to someone who is just saying like what they think or what they learned from someone else. Because that, like you and I were talking about that before you press record, about your own
Hmm.
channeling, like sometimes feel it like, oh no, that's too much me in there.
Exactly.
Versus that, like like for me, when I do a channeled message on my YouTube channel, uh, which I do about 5 days a week on weeks when I'm working, because I do have vacations too. I will not even know who's going to come through. Like, not only do I not know what are they going to say, but I don't know who I'm going to channel, which means I have to doubly surrender in that moment to what's going to happen. And it's easier for me to do that now that I've done it thousands and thousands of times,
Exactly.
in my life now, 15,
Hmm.
almost 15 years of doing it.
Wow.
So,
You and I have something in common I find fascinating is that we were both screenwriters. We both moved to LA at the same time. We were both here. And so I wanted to relate that to just creatives tend to be at the beginning a little bit better channelers because of what you just said. They open up to this energy. There's a part when we were writing stories where you sort of just have to be in the zone, in the moment, letting the words come to you, and a story flows out of you. It's a state of mind. It's also the very beginnings of learning the actual process of channeling, right?
yeah, I mean, I used dancing as the analogy before. I used to be quite the dancer back in the day. Like
Yeah.
in the 90s, living in Boston, I would go to nightclubs and I would stand. There'd be a stage at the particular nightclub I went to called Avalon on Lansdowne Street in Boston. And there was a stage, and I would go right to the center, middle, front of the stage and start dancing and go for hours. And of course there was most nights alcohol involved, so that did help to like loosen up the
Right.
inhibitions and get me moving like that. But I do love to dance, and I do recognize when it just happens, and it tends to happen when you really like the song and that you're
Hmm.
dancing to, versus like if you just said, well, everybody at the wedding is getting up to dance to Celebration by Kool and the Gang, so I guess I better go up there and do it too. And you're just like going through the motions because you don't really like the song. Well, with
Hmm.
writing, like so then I moved to LA, and I had written 4 screenplays by then. And I got into this professional program for screenwriting at UCLA. They'll let anybody in essentially, and like you had $3,000,
Right.
and so. I remember like the difference between when I'd write a screenplay where I got the inspired ideas for it,
Hmm.
which came naturally, and when it was a trimester and you were supposed to write one screenplay per trimester. So there were times when I was kind of under the gun. Like, I've got to write a screenplay here. I've got to come up with an idea for a screenplay, and all the ideas then that you have to come up with after you get the germ of the idea for the screenplay. And so sometimes it really didn't flow that well, but that was because there was a deadline and all that. And it's the
Right.
same thing, like I was saying before, like just kind of forcing yourself to get up and move because everybody else is, versus like, oh, I love this song, and you just burst up out of your chair and you start moving. It's like that with writing too, where if you're trying and with like finding your keys or your remote or your phone or whatever, when you're trying to find it, sometimes you're really bad at finding it. And then as soon as you give up, you go right to where it is because
Exactly.
some part of you knew where it was. I never came to this conclusion until right now with this analogy, but there is a reason why you sit down on the couch right where you sit down and after you've given up, and then it's right there, whatever you're looking for. So it's
So
that
true.
letting go, giving up thing that happens when a channeler realizes, like, oh, I don't have to make any of this happen. Like, I don't have to do all the necessary things so that some brilliance comes through me. I just have to be so completely surrendered to it and relaxed that I will let it happen through me.
And it's very fascinating. The thing that you're doing is that you can teach channeling. Some people would argue that, oh, it's just something that you just that can happen to you if you've got this an inherited skill. But the truth of it is, you can teach channeling. There is a way for you to teach somebody that's never really done it to start to tune in to in a number of different ways. So talk about how it's something that you can actually teach.
Yeah, well, when I was first starting out in 2010, I wish I had found someone teaching a course like the one that I teach now,
Mhm.
because I've learned so much by doing, and also by, in my opinion, not being as naturally gifted at it as, say, Jane Roberts was, Daryl Anka is, my favorites,
Mhm.
Paul Selig, like they just from day one have been masterful channelers. And
Right.
I feel like I'm the guy who like worked his way up through the minor leagues and scraped and clawed to get to the major leagues by knowing all the tricks and everything, because even though, yeah, it was something that kind of happened to me in 2010, but I also had been meditating every day for 10 years leading up to it. It didn't
Right.
just happen. I had trained myself how to focus, and I think I still am. I was sitting next to Lisa Royal Holt, a great channeler, of so many different beings, Germain and Sasha and Hamon, and she and I had met for the first time at the channel panel in Sedona, which was right
Yeah.
before I met you, and she said we're just having all these conversations about ETs and contact and our own personal experiences and channeling. And she said, yeah, it'll be 40 years this year that I've been channeling for.
Wow.
And I said, yeah, it'll be 15 for me. And she said, oh, it's going to get so much better. She said, will you wait and see what's in store for you, from now till I get to where she is. Um, and it's so true. And I recognize that too. Like, I'm not done growing as a channeler, and nobody is really. All the greats are still getting better at it as
Hmm.
they do it. And that's something that I can help people with. Like when you and I were talking earlier about your channeling, that's something that obviously comes up with everyone I work with, whether it's one
Hmm.
on one or in a course. because everyone has that experience of, well, I don't really know if it's real. I don't know if I'm channeling or I'm just making it up, or it seems like it's all stuff I already know. Well, the truth is that you will get better at getting out of the way. In fact, Esther Hicks used to ask Abraham from time to time, "Hey, Abraham, how am I doing?" Because she knew that, like,
Hmm.
it was a skill, and she was working on the skill of being able to take what she was being given by Abraham, which she's always called a block of thought, and
Right.
turn it into words. And I've actually been at workshops where Esther has been channeling, and then all of a sudden she'll start at a sentence, and then I don't know if you say this is her or Abraham says, "Begin again."
Uh,
And so the teaching or the answer to the question will be started over in a different way because she won't have been getting it like quite right, you know?
right.
So it is true of all of us that we're these works in progress. We're always wanting to get more authentic with the channeling.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, every channeler is making it up because they're taking something that isn't words and making it into
Into words.
words. In
Y-
other words, even if you're channeling tones, light language, I don't care what it is, art, codes that you're writing down, that's still your interpretation of that thing.
Yeah.
But it's not the thing. It's like art, like some great artist like Picasso or somebody said, like, art is just the lie that's trying to tell the truth. Like, it's
Yeah.
not the truth. And and people, spiritual people will say, like, that thing, that teaching, that book, whatever, is pointing you to the truth. It's not the truth is in that book,
Right.
but it's meant to point you towards it. And as channelers, teachers of any kind, what we're really meant to do is point people to the truth, not all just give them all the answers. Just like,
Right.
okay, here's what's going to happen next week and next year, and this is what's going on here, and you can expect this in your life, and your soulmate is coming in 6 months, and this is how it will happen. And
Yeah.
we're not supposed to be doing that, although that's what people would love to
Hmm.
get. But we're really supposed to be giving people homework or letting them realize through that opening up and channeling higher frequency energies. Oh, you had the answer all along. It was right there. It was,
You're right.
you knew the answer. You just needed to be in this space with us and with the channeler to realize you knew it already.
In my own case, and I mentioned it at the beginning of when I had released the channeling that I had got, I said in my, that I had learned that I'm not clearly I'm not authentic, but I still feel something coming through. And I would do automatic writing and stuff would come to me. And I felt like by just sharing that with my audience, it freed me up to channel better. It was like I'm just getting this ahead of time. I'm telling you, I'm doing my best to be as pure as I can, but obviously some of me is coming through, so it's not 100% clear. But as soon as I said that, I felt like it like relieved me of the concern during the process, and I actually felt like I was a better channel in that process by letting that go. Like it's not important now. There's a part of me that wanted to make sure people knew that I'm not lying to you. This is really coming through, and I wasn't judging myself anymore. So I wanted to
Yeah.
remove that aspect of it. Um, I am, there's been very few books written on how to channel. One of my favorites is by Carla Ruckert. It's pretty extensive
Oh.
description of how to the channeling process, the different things that can be people can go through. And so I'm fascinated because they kind of treated it like it's a science. It's a little bit of a science. Everybody is going to be able to do it differently, but there are sets and procedures and steps that you can follow that will make it a little bit easier for you, correct?
Well, she, as far as I know, had a very elaborate kind of
She did.
process for connection. And I would say it's going to be different for
Yeah.
everyone. But
And
I
she
would
said that too.
also,
Yeah.
yeah, it's there are certain components that you want to be there. Like you never want to go into it feeling afraid. You
Hmm.
never want to go into it from any kind of low vibe or like if I do this, then I'll get all the answers. And if I have all the answers, then I'll know what to do. And if I know what to do, then I'll lead a happy life. But if instead you go into it with this attitude of, gee, it would be really fun to have energy flowing through me that wasn't there before,
Hmm.
and that feeling of connection, and like, won't it be interesting to see who I get when I channel? Like you go into it with sort of like exploratory enthusiasm for it. That's going to, I think, work much better for most people than like, I must have the answer to this question and I need it now and it needs to be black or white and I need to, like that.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's not really what it's for anyway. It is really for you, for the recipient of it to have some new approaches to life that they can take or new perspectives on life
Hmm.
that will be helpful to them to navigate their life better as a better version of themselves with more tools and tips and tricks. Like right now, it's funny you mentioned perfectionism and stuff, like, because I'm I listen to a podcast on parenting, and it's because I have a 5-year old, and it can be really hard sometimes. Last night she was in tears because these toys that she bought, like, they're all part of a set, but then this one that didn't come with this one, like, didn't fit in with and it was like really tragic for her. And it's just hard to like know what to do and say in that
Yeah.
situation. So I'm listening to this podcast called Zen Parenting, which is so good. And the couple that do it, they're a great couple and they're my age exactly. And like, it's just so cool. So I forget why I got off on that tangent, but like, but yeah, perfectionism is a problem
It
if
is.
you're channeling, because and Abraham calling themselves infinite intelligence is a problem in the sense of, you know, everything is perspective and there are very few ultimate truths. Like, I would say you could boil down the ultimate truths to, we are all source is us, we are all one, everything is love, that sort of stuff. Where, and I think knowing that is what makes a person awake. But then there's like everything else being perspective. Like, how do you deal with this? Like, how do you deal with mass shootings in the US? Like, what's the right approach? Like things of that nature where there's different perspectives on these things. And that's what they offer. Like the Pleiadians over here may offer a different perspective than Abraham does, or Arcturians do, or Saint Germain does. And so we get these different approaches. And I think if you blend them all together, like Abraham has a lot of cool, interesting things to say, and so does Bashar, and they're not saying the exact same thing, which is great. Because and then Eckhart Tolle saying this over here, so you get to like draw from all of them and kind of have an approach to life that helps you.
Yeah. And the thing that some of those books on channeling have point out that and it's also something I observed, I think we've talked about this, is Carla was really fascinated with the pure channeling. She knew that there was an infinite universe that she could channel, but she wanted to channel the highest, purest
Yeah.
source that she could. So that's why she went through that ritual. And you see some people that start and their channeling is great, and then there's suddenly a change and it's different. And it's clearly just like you're reading two different authors. They're channeling
Yeah.
something different. And so I want to talk about that. Like what you're channeling is also important. Is there a way to tune into the highest frequency that you utilize?
Well, one thing would be make sure that you're tuning into the highest frequencies when you're not channeling.
Mhm.
So, in other words, you have a choice as a human being whether you're going to watch crime dramas all day and all night and stay in that kind of vibe, or whether you're going to watch videos of kittens playing and things that make you laugh, or go out into nature and don't tune into anything on the
Yeah.
computer or television. Just go into, things that uplift you, make you feel good. You're tuning in, tuning in, tuning. You're just, we're consuming all the time different vibrations. And as we tend to that, like, what am I what am I eating, and what am I watching, and what am I listening to, and what am I focusing on about my life? You could have one thing in your body that's bothering you, and it can get 100% of your attention, or you can give all of your attention to all the things that aren't bothering you in your body, and all the things your body's doing great. And which one do you think is going to promote more of the healing of the thing that is bothering you?
Mhm.
So we're always needing to pay attention to what we're focusing on, and that will determine our vibration. And then when we sit to channel, it's sort of like if you're in your head all day, you're watching things, you're consuming things, you're listening to podcasts, you're thinking about the future and what you could do, and all these conversations in your head with other people, and then you sit to meditate and you're like, okay, stop. Like, that's harder
Yeah.
than if you're like walking around like a Buddhist monk all day, just oming and focusing on being mindful and present and in your body. So, like, you really want to be more like that Buddhist monk if you want to then bring through something for the masses that's going to reflect that vibration that you've been carrying all day in your consciousness.
What is your view of people where the channelings go from pure love to straight political propaganda and craziness? What's your view of those kind that happen every once in a while?
Well, I can't even give you my view so much because I will ignore slash avoid anything like that.
Yeah.
It it so doesn't interest me what someone is saying when there is a particular political agenda, or you can just tell. You can often tell by the thumbnail and the pictures they choose in the thumbnail on YouTube, or of course the title of it, warning, or something like that. And it's like, I know I don't want to watch that. I know I don't really care what is being said here. But what I will say too is that anything you have that has a filter on it. I have a giant Dyson air purifier here in my office, and if I don't clean out that filter, or
Yeah.
if I don't replace that filter when that filter needs replacing, it's not spewing out the kind of air that I want in my office. And that channeler who wants to channel something that's going to be of value to others needs to also realize that they have a filter. And if their filter's getting clogged with low vibe, us versus them, conspiratorial stuff, they're going to have a hard time bringing anything through that's pure love and light, Carla Ruckert kind of,
Yeah, yeah,
quality.
absolutely. And you're doing this, you're bringing in pure love and light. I mean, I absolutely say that because I feel it when I read the words, and it's wonderful, the message that many of the different entities that you channel carry. I'd love to ask, I don't know if I've asked it, but what's your favorite experience you've had from channeling?
Okay, this is a weird one. Well, first of all, the channel panel was amazing. I channeled for 90 minutes. The Arcturians came through. They were funny. There were like roars of laughter in the audience. There's hundreds of people. It was the biggest that I've ever channeled at. And
Mhm.
then as I opened my eyes at the end, I look out at the audience and they're clapping, and I was getting emotional. I was like tearing up because it was just so gratifying. It was obviously ego gratifying and all that, but it was also just nice to be a part of something so beautiful. And then as I'm walking off stage, Daryl Anka was there, and I didn't realize he was there, but he was there watching me channel, and he said congratulations as I walked off stage. And
Oh,
I was like,
wow.
I didn't even realize it was him until I looked up because I said, "Oh, thanks, I'm relieved." I thought it was like one of the sound guys, and then I look up and it's like, "Oh my God, there's my hero! Congratulate me." So that was cool. But early on, I channeled in one of those workshops where I was in somebody's home, and there's usually like a dozen or so people at these things, and
Mhm.
this one woman was brand new to me in my channeling. And now she is now a professional channeler, by the way. I just want to add that part. But I go in and I'm channeling the creators, and they make those tones, those very like didgeridoo sounding tones, and they're overtones, and they're meant to have a very powerful impact on people. All the toning is that's coming through, and it's them, not me, doing it. But I heard, my eyes are closed, but I heard all these sounds coming from the crowd of people that was there, and it was her, and she asked the first question, and they were good sounds, by the way. They were like, oh my God kind of sounds, like I can't believe I'm feeling this kind of sounds. And she said that she always tends to have this pain and stiffness in like the side of her face or her jaw or something, like
Yeah.
one spot in particular. And as the tones came through, she felt it melting away.
Wow.
And so for me, I was like, okay, this is real. Like what you're doing is good, because that was more than just like mumbo jumbo or you like paraphrasing something that someone else has said 1,000 times. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
was like, okay, I can't deny that that happened, And
Amazing.
so that felt really good. And like I said, happening too, like pretty early on in my career, it was great.
What would be the weirdest thing you've experienced channeling?
Somebody coming through that I wasn't expecting,
Yeah.
like I did channel the Zetas when I was trying to channel the Pleiadians, and the Zetas are those beings that the little gray aliens that came and did all the poking and prodding at us back in
Right.
the day. They're all dead now, so they're like this collective consciousness now that came through me, and I just didn't expect it. And it was the first time I think that I had channeled ETs.
Oh,
So
wow.
I hadn't channeled the Pleiadians or Arcturians or anybody else at that time. I had channeled archangels and the creators and Ophelia the Faerie. But when they came through, I was like, well, that's weird.
Yeah.
And also, here's another very weird one. I was in my Learn to Channel mega course, which I have a new one starting up on March 11th. We'll talk about that a little
Yeah.
bit later. But like when I'm teaching the Learn to Channel mega course, which is 9 2-hour classes, the second hour of each of the classes is always I'm leading everybody through a channeling exercise, two of them actually, two channeling exercises that then they're meant to like channel for 10 minutes while I'm silent. I don't have to say anything while they're doing their own thing, and they can sit in silence
Hmm.
after I've led them into the state of channeling. And then um, what I started doing at some point was muting myself. And so I just figured rather than just sitting here waiting for 10 minutes, I'll mute myself and I'll see who comes through me. And that's how Thymus came the first time. That's how Melchizedek started coming through me. Saint Germain started coming through more during those too. But the weirdest one was the quarks.
Oh,
So
yeah.
a quark is a very, very, very tiny subatomic particle that
Hmm.
I vaguely had heard something about at some point, but didn't really know. I had to Google it after. But the consciousness of the quarks came through me, and I channeled them maybe twice. And then that same week, I had a client who was a healer, a one-on-one with a client, and I forget what, I think the session must have been about channeling or something like I was teaching. And she was saying, yeah, I channel in my healing sessions the quarks. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
that is too that's too synchronistic. Like I couldn't even believe it was. I made her spell it. I'm like, say what you said again, but spell it because I know how to spell quark.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's some things are pretty freaky. Yeah, that do
It's
happen.
it fascinates me so much. And the science fiction part of me, the screenwriter part of me, loves to look into the future where we have a world of channelers, where we have new technologies finally starting to come about when they feel like, okay, you've reached that certain level of consciousness, we can share these things. Because there's certainly a little bit of a resistance to sharing specifics, but there's going to be a point where we're going to have different entities coming through and it will affect the entire world affairs. We will have a greater understanding of so many things that are going on that it will change everything. It will become a fundamental aspect of our future culture, maybe in 100 years from now when everybody's channeling, right? What is your view
Everybody's
of that?
telepathic too.
Yeah,
I think
every
everybody's going to be channeling and telepathic, and we won't need words anymore, spoken
yeah.
words. Um, well, the great thing about it too is not that people will be able to access information, like I said before, but if everybody's channeling, that means everybody reached that level of consciousness where they can channel because it really does happen from reaching a level of consciousness. And that's what I try to hopefully teach people in my courses and one-on-ones how to do. Like, here's how you get to this place where this thing called channeling can happen for you. And of course, there's lots of things that a person's going to have to do on their own too. Like they're going to have to do all the things you and I have been talking about to take care of themselves and go to the place where they feel the most aligned, where, like I used to channel the daily messages that I now video myself channeling, but at the early on, I was just channeling them into my phone's voice memo and then going home and transcribing them.
Mhm.
And I would go on these hikes. I hiked, I'm sure I told you when we met at the restaurant, I hiked in Pacific Palisades, the
Mhm.
same hike, Will Rogers State Park, which became like a place for the National Guard after I left because it was a place they set up tents and stuff to deal with the fire. So that was
Yeah.
crazy for me. But yeah, that I used to go on that hike, sit under a specific tree, and channel into my phone the daily message, and that was my happy place. And then I moved to Ojai, California, which is like the Sedona of California, and I would sit next to I guess it was called the Ojai River. So it was like a river, but it was narrow enough for me to walk um, across it on rocks and get to a big rock and sit with my back up against a rock. And I channeled the daily messages there for like a year and
Wow.
9 months. Yeah.
I
And
didn't know that. That's amazing.
yeah, these are places, you find intuitively where you go, this is where, like, I didn't plan any of it. It just all happened where I would just be like, I love hiking.
Hmm.
This looks like a cool spot to sit. And then why don't I channel while I'm here?
Yeah. And so you offer the channeling mega course. Tell me a little bit more about that. People are going to be able to access that
Yeah.
starting on March 11th.
Yeah. So what I decided to do, and it was one of the reasons why I set up this talk with you, is to do a discount code for your audience. So if people
Yeah.
go to my site, and it's danielscranton.com/mega, MEGA, and they put it in the cart, and then they go to checkout, and they put Brian Scott in and click apply coupon, they'll get $100 off the
Wow.
cost of the course, right? So then that course will take place once a month starting March 11th, where everyone will meet with me on Zoom, and in the first hour it'll be me lecturing about channeling, offering the tips and tricks and things that I've learned, but also we'll get into specifics. Like it'll be, the first class is intro to channeling kind of thing, and then the second one is toning, and then light language, and then channeling your higher self, channeling your spirit guides, channeling ascended masters, channeling archangels, channeling fairies, elementals, unicorns, mermaids, whatever those, any mythical creature you can think of. and then finally in the last class channeling aliens.
Wow.
So it was like a build up in what I consider to be like what's easiest to do and what most people will probably do in the beginning is channeling their higher self. So channeling the aliens, which is probably the hardest thing.
Yeah.
And the second hour of each of those classes is the here's how you do it. Like here's a couple of processes to get you in the channeling state and channeling those beings specifically that you want to channel.
So it's
And so yeah,
danielscranton.com/mega. Brian Scott is the code. I will have that in the description. And as a little dessert for our for watchers, we were going to do a little channeling today.
yeah.
And you had mentioned maybe we could channel Saint Germain. So I don't believe that I have read or at least on the channel, the Saint Germain channeling. So I'm super fascinated. Anything that you'd like to mention about channeling specifically Saint Germain?
I don't know why I'm doing it. Like I still to this day don't know why Saint Germain wants to come through me so much that like I said, I'm not planning who's coming through in those messages I put up on YouTube and on my website.
Hmm.
And I have no pre-existing relationship with Saint Germain. I'm not really sure who Saint Germain was as a person, or people say, oh, he was Shakespeare too, and he was this person and that person. I don't know if any of that is true.
Hmm.
And I started channeling Thymus, the collective of ascended masters, and then I'm like now channeling this individuated ascended master named Saint Germain and Melchizedek. Melchizedek, I have more of an idea of why because I was fascinated with Paul Selig's work,
Right.
and that's who Paul Selig is channeling. So it made sense, but this makes no sense to me why Saint Germain is coming
So he
through.
refers to himself as I, not we, when he's
Yes, he
channeling.
does. And
Okay.
that is because I think, and sometimes it does slip into we because they're all collectives up there, like
Hmm.
where he exists. But we still think of him as an individual. And Yeshua is the same way. Yeshua, Buddha, Quan Yin, they'll always use the singular pronoun because that's how we think of them. And I think it makes it easier than if it gets a bit more confusing if people are like, wait, I thought this was Saint Germain. Why is he saying we and us and
Yeah,
our
yeah.
and our? You know what I mean? So I think that's
Interesting.
probably, yeah.
Well, it's wonderful to get a chance because on this channel I've read the I Am Disclosures, the whole 9 hour book, as well as several other
Who's that one
chapters.
by?
That's by Saint Germain. That was channeled
But
from
who
Saint
channeled?
the original group that channeled the Saint Germain writings, the I Am Disclosures. It's not coming to me,
Okay. All right.
he's just writing down the words of Saint Germain from those. There's actually
Uh-huh.
been multiple different channels of Saint Germain through history, and there's also an original book on Saint Germain, and I'm well versed in the mysteries of Saint Germain. Should I avoid asking too specific of questions of Saint Germain, or what would you recommend in order to get the best responses from Saint Germain?
Well, I think there's curiosity questions, and then there's questions that are more relevant to like what people are living in their lives right now, what Earth's going through, what humanity is
Yeah,
going through, what United States is going through. Like all that stuff, I think
yeah,
is going to reach more people in terms of what they're
yeah.
looking for. Yeah.
Back in the 20s when he was channeling, he was all about, the United States as a shining beacon, talking about the United States as this is right before the wars are happening, and he's saying, the United States can stand. He was saying it in a spiritual way. It wasn't political. It was interesting, you know what I mean? But yeah, I would love to get a chance to talk to Saint Germain, and anything else you want to comment on Saint Germain before we go?
Um, I don't know really. Like I said, I have so much
All
idea.
right.
I met a guy named Peter Mount Shasta. That's why I asked you who
Yeah,
wrote it
yeah.
because this guy Peter Mount
I know
Shasta
Peter.
is famous for writing Saint Germain books too. And I met him when I was living in Santa Monica. My Reiki practitioner took me because she knew him to this small gathering where he was, and so that I don't know if that is relevant at all because he's
Yeah.
such a big Saint Germain guy. If I got an activation, because I was already a channeler then, but
Interesting.
Yeah, but I seriously just had no interest, and suddenly Saint Germain.
I love it. This is awesome. It's so much fun. All right, cool. All right,
Here we
let's
go.
go.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. I am Saint Germain, keeper of the violet flame. Hello, Brian. Hello, Brian's audience. It is good to be here. It is good to share with you the essence of the violet flame. It is a level of consciousness. It is more of the essence of source that you can experience through color, through the expression of the flame. I am here to assist. I am here to help. I am here to lead through the example of the energies that I provide to you so that you can then take those energies and run with them, be inspired by them, create what you want to create with them. This is not a mandate. I am not here to tell you what to do, what you have to do, that you need to do anything, but I offer you the invitation. I offer you my expression of the violet flame energy to do with whatever you please. You can bask in it. You can be bathed in it. You can be cleansed by it. And you can co-create with it. It is meant to be for you. And so again, there is no agenda that I have other than to offer you another tool in your toolkit and some teachings, of course, as well. I don't just talk about the violet flame forever and evermore. I offer teachings to all of you so that you can live your lives as the masters that you are, but still in physical human form, which is what you all set out to do when you incarnated in this lifetime, a lifetime that you chose to awaken in. and it's a beautiful life, and you can make it more beautiful with your infusion of more of the high frequency essence of your soul that you always have access to, but that you perhaps access more of when you are focused in a way that aligns you. And if focusing on the violet flame helps you to do that, then use it. If focusing on channeled teachings and channeled material helps you to align, then use that as well. Because when you are moving through your day as the aligned version of yourself that you can be, you do feel in the flow and you do channel that which you bring to humanity. And you all can bring something to humanity that is of great value to your fellow humans.
It was at this point that something happened between the sound between Daniel and I, and he was not able to ask questions. So we then proceeded to communicate by text, and he continued with the channeling.
I am Saint Germain, keeper of the violet flame. I am happy to be here with you and to speak with you from my non-physical heart, from my consciousness, without the need for questions being asked, because we in the higher realms often do know what your questions are, what your questions for us would be. We know, for example, that you are living in a time and in a space where a lot of emotions are being heightened at this time, and they are being heightened because they are the emotions that you need to feel individually and collectively. Of course, you need to feel love, you need to feel peace, you need to feel joy, you need to feel free, because you are free to create whatever you would like to create for yourself and others. But you also have emotions that you've been harboring, things that you have allowed to rest within your bodies, your chakras, and your energy fields for far too long. They need to come up and out. They need to surface so that you can recognize what has been there all along, stewing, percolating, simmering, and a lot of other cooking metaphors. What I am saying to you is that it is time to let yourselves feel. Don't worry. Don't overthink what's happening. Don't try to convince others that your point of view is right about what is happening, because that doesn't serve you. Let yourselves be triggered. Let yourselves see how you've been feeling about your world, your politicians, your economies, your environment, the future, artificial intelligence, all of these things that you have been contemplating, worrying about, having all kinds of fears and judgments around. If you just harbor those fears inside of yourselves and do nothing about them, they then have to be magnified by what you're seeing in front of you. And I am talking about your own personal relationship with all of these things, and also humanity's, because you are a part of a human collective. And you're having a group experience right now of life on planet Earth. And it is very troubling to many of you. Now, if you're not feeling troubled by what's happening in your personal life or on planet Earth, then you can feel very good about where you are. But if you're feeling very good because you think someone outside of you is going to take care of everything for you, then you're still not getting it. It's always an inside job. You can choose to see everyone who is a billionaire, everyone who is in a position of power, as a source energy being, and you can offer unconditional love, compassion, healing, and forgiveness to every single person that you may have had reasons to fear in the past. You can also look within yourselves for why you are getting triggered. What is this about for you? What are you in judgment of? What are you afraid of? What do you need to clear up within yourself, within your own belief system? What are the emotions you haven't been allowing yourself to feel? What are the thoughts that have been just below the surface in your subconscious that you're now becoming very aware of? And know that you always hold all the power because you have free will. And I am not talking about free will in terms of I can do good or I can do bad in this situation. I am talking about the free will that is your point of focus, your choice in terms of what's my next thought going to be? What am I going to give more energy to? What am I going to believe in? It serves you to believe in the ascension of humanity and the continued up-leveling of the human collective consciousness. It serves you to believe in the divinity in all beings and that there is a divine plan, no matter how it might look on your world today, in the political spectrum, in the global spectrum, in the economic and environmental spectrums. You have the ability to look for that which is divine, that which is perfect, and that which is at the same time ever evolving and becoming more, becoming closer to that divine perfection, where everyone is served, where everyone is getting not only what they need, but some of what they want as well, so that you can all thrive on planet Earth together, because this is what this Earth experience is all about. It's to get you to recognize that you can thrive in spite of the variety and diversity that you have. You can thrive in spite of your differences. All your differences, no matter how extreme they might be in terms of how yours is different from someone else's view on something. So that's really what I wanted to say to all of you, and also to remind you all to take deep breaths and relax and open yourselves up to the peace, love, and joy that are inside of you at all times. And when you can do those things, you can live a life of mastery on planet Earth right now. I am Saint Germain, keeper of the violet flame. So, even though when I'm channeling, I do all the arm movements and hand movements and stuff, and it's all very much automatic like that, I do still have control over my body and my eyes, and I'm able to pick up my phone and say, okay, we're getting close to the 10 minutes now. That's just a little, in case anyone was wondering, how much in a trance is he? I'm not very in a trance at all, but I still have a lot of involuntary things happening with me, including the tones, which I don't plan in any way. They just come out. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here for this video. I'm sorry Brian and I can't talk to each other, but I know he'll say some things after I finish. I've got to go. Remember, if you're interested in learning to channel from me, you can have me for 18 hours on Zoom over a span of many months, starting March 11th. If you go to the link down below that I'm sure Brian will put there, and when you sign up, make sure you go to that next screen, the checkout screen, type in Brian Scott all together, all one word, no space, no capitals or anything, and then click apply. And if you're on your phone, you'll have to scroll a little to see that the $100 was taken off, because on phones it doesn't appear on that same screen unless you're gonna go down a little bit. And I hope to see you there on Zoom. They're all recorded, so if you look at the dates and times, you say, oh, I can't make it to that one, I can't make it to that one, you get the recordings. You can always attend by the recordings if that's the only way that you can attend, and a lot of people actually do that, so don't worry about it. I'm happy just to have more people in the course. And I thank you for watching and enjoying the Saint Germain channeling, which I hope you did. And I'm sure I'll be back on this reality revolution again at some point, because Brian and I are quite the team. So thanks, Brian. I love you, buddy. Take care. I'll see you soon. Maybe see you at Owl Lock again soon.
Thanks so much, Daniel. It's wonderful to hear you channel. It's unfortunate that we had this strange audio mishap that sometimes happens. It's fascinating to me the way that the internet and technology can be interrupted when you're in higher frequencies. That happens all the time with channeling. I'd love to hear people mention that in the comments. And it's unfortunate because I was really excited to ask some questions of Saint Germain and get a feeling, an idea for some of the things we've talked about on the channel with the I am disclosures. But it's always good to hear Daniel do those channelings. So be sure to check out the link I have in the description if you want to learn how to channel. It's a great place to start. And welcome to the Reality Revolution.
We return you now to your local announcement.